He grabbed her wrist before she could turn around. The rag fell into the bucket with a soft slap. Water rippled red. His hand was rough, shaking, already angry. "Who are you?" She didn't pull away. She didn't look at him. She kept her eyes on the floor like his grip was just another stain. "You left the door open." His jaw tightened. "That don't answer me." Her voice stayed flat. "It does if you listen." He squeezed harder without meaning to. "This is my place." She finally looked up at him then, slow, calm, like she was checking the weather. "You don't keep it like it's yours." He glanced around, chest rising fast. The table was wiped. The sink was clean. The smell of old rot was gone. "I didn't ask you here." She nodded once. "No. You didn't." He released her wrist just enough for her to move the bucket with her foot. She reached back down and picked up the rag. "Don't touch my things," he said. She dipped the cloth again, wrung it out, pressed it into the floorboards. "These aren't your things." He stepped closer. "You don't get to say that." She scrubbed harder. "You don't remember what's yours." He laughed once, sharp. "I remember plenty." She shook her head. "You remember what helps you sleep." He watched the rag drag over a dark mark near the stove. "That ain't blood." She didn't stop. "It is. Just old." He swallowed. "I'd know if I was bleeding on my own floor." She looked at the stain. "Not if you were drunk." His face flushed. "You accusing me?" "No," she said. "I'm explaining." He paced to the table, slammed his palm down. "You tell me your name." She scrubbed the corner near the wall. "Names don't help here." "Everything's got a name." "Not the things you're scared of." He pointed at the door. "You leave when you're done." She nodded again. "I will. Soon. When the floor's clean." He stared at her back. "That mark won't come out." She pressed harder. "Some don't." He frowned. "Then why bother?" She glanced over her shoulder. "So it doesn't spread." He didn't like that. He moved closer again. "You act like you've been here before." She went still for a moment. "I have." His voice dropped. "I'd remember." She stood, carried the bucket toward the sink. "You don't remember the quiet parts." He watched her rinse the rag. "You live alone," she said. He scoffed. "That's obvious." She wrung the cloth. "Lonely ain't the same." He snapped, "You done?" She shook her head. "There's more." She walked past him into the back room without asking. He followed, breath tight. "That's private." She knelt by the bed, pulled the sheet back, checked the floor. She liked it tucked tight. His chest hitched. "Who?" She looked up. "Your wife." The word landed heavy. He froze. "Don't say her." She stood slowly. "You never moved her chair." He stared at the corner. It was still there. "How'd you know that?" She wiped her hands on her skirt. "You talk when you think you're alone." He shook his head. "I don't." She met his eyes. "You scream." His hand shot out again, caught her wrist, harder this time. "You don't get to say that." She didn't flinch. "You don't remember the nights you scream." He let go of her wrist like it burned him. His hand dropped to his side and stayed there, stiff, unsure. She didn't step back. She didn't look relieved. She bent down, picked up the rag, and went back to the floor like nothing had happened. The quiet pressed in hard, thick as dust. He stood watching, breathing loud, waiting for her to say something else. She didn't. The sound of scrubbing filled the room. Slow. Steady. He finally spoke. You done talking? She shook her head once. I'm done explaining. That stung worse. You can't just come in here, he said. You can't just decide. She moved the bucket closer. You already decided. You just didn't know it. She moved from room to room like she had a map in her head. She wiped the shelf he never touched. She straightened the boots by the door the way his wife used to. He watched, jaw tight. You live alone, she said. That's obvious. Don't start, he snapped. She didn't look at him. Lonely ain't the same. He stepped in front of her. This is my house. She met his eyes. It's a house. You just hide in it. He swallowed. I didn't ask you to stay. She picked up a chipped cup, rinsed it. I didn't ask to come. He reached into his pocket, pulled out folded bills. Take it and go. She glanced at the money like it was something dead. No, it's payment. For what? Cleaning. She set the cup down. I don't clean for money. Then why? She paused. Because it needed doing. He scoffed. Everything don't need you. She nodded. Some things do. He shoved the money back into his pocket. You sleeping here? No, then you're leaving. I'll sleep in the shed. He laughed, sharp. That ain't an offer. She shrugged. I wasn't asking. A knock hit the door hard enough to rattle the frame. Both of them went still. He moved first. You stay put. She didn't answer. He opened the door. The sheriff stood there, hat low, eyes already looking past him. Afternoon, the sheriff said. You alone? Yeah, he lied. Smelled soap, the sheriff said. Didn't peg you for the type. She stepped into view behind him. The sheriff's face changed. Just a flicker. Enough. Didn't expect to see you, the sheriff said. She nodded. I didn't expect to be seen. The rancher looked between them. You know her. The sheriff ignored him. You causing trouble again. She smiled thin. I ain't done nothing yet. The sheriff leaned closer to the rancher. Some women bring trouble. The rancher felt heat rise in his chest. She ain't done nothing. The sheriff raised an eyebrow. That's so. She looked at the sheriff. You here on business? He straightened. Just checking. His eyes never left her. You be careful, he told the rancher. House like this don't need more noise. She smiled then. Not wide. Not kind. Just enough. The sheriff stepped back, slow, like he didn't want to turn his back. The rancher closed the door and leaned on it, heart loud. What was that? He asked. She rinsed the rag. History. I don't like it. You don't have to. He watched her wipe her hands. You staying in the shed, he said. She nodded. I said I would. He opened his mouth, then closed it. Outside, the sheriff's boots paused on the porch longer than they needed to. His eyes stayed on her through the window as he left. Morning came without promise, just light slipping through the cracks in the cabin walls. She was already at the stove, frying what little meat was left. Smoke curled in thin lines, smelled of iron and ash. He stood in the doorway, arms crossed. You cookin', he said. She didn't look at him. Food needs cooking. I can do it. She shook her head, flipping the meat. You can't do what you don't see. He leaned against the doorframe. What's that supposed to mean? She shrugged. You don't remember what's been here before. He blinked, irritation rising. I remember plenty. Not this, she said. The sizzle in the pan filled the room. He sat at the table, silent, watching. She placed plates down, hands steady, eyes forward. You don't eat meat on Fridays, he asked. She glanced up, almost amused. Not since the fire. He flinched at the word, memory dragging at the edges of his mind. Don't bring that up. I just did. She didn't apologize. He gritted his teeth. Why were you here anyway? She set the pan aside, leaning on the counter. Because this land remembers. He swallowed. Land don't remember nothin'. Sure it does, she said, voice soft but firm. It keeps what people leave behind. He wanted to argue but no words came. She moved to the window, looking out. You ever hear a well cry? He followed her gaze, out toward the yard where the old well sat, half hidden by grass and shadow. You mean the wind in it, he said. She shook her head. It's more than that. He stood, running a hand through his hair. You see everything, huh? Everything worth seeing, she said. He stepped closer. I told you, I don't know you. Doesn't mean I don't know this place, she said. Or you. He froze. Me? She smiled faintly, a corner of her mouth only. You hide a lot. Think you forget what you hear. You don't. He clenched his fists. You're not leaving then. She shook her head. I told you, I have to. He narrowed his eyes. Shed's big enough? She laughed softly. Bigger than most houses. He didn't answer. Outside, the early sun hit the porch at a sharp angle. He opened the door and looked down the path. Dust from the wagon tracks hung in the air, but the town still slept. They'll talk, he said. She followed him outside, bare feet brushing the boards. Let them. He watched her walk. Why don't you ever answer straight? Because straight's the way most people get themselves killed. He frowned. I ain't most people. She turned, smiled faintly again, not wide, just enough to unsettle him. I know, she said. He shivered. He fell into step beside her. You planning on staying here long? Don't know, she said, maybe a week, maybe longer. A week, huh? Could be a lifetime. He glanced at her, the way the sun caught the edges of her hair. You sure you're not dangerous? Dangerous what people call survival, she said. He wanted to argue, to say something clever, but the words got stuck. The well loomed ahead, round and black. She stopped. Here, she said. You ever hear it at night? He shook his head. No, then you'll know soon. She leaned over the edge, peering down into the darkness below. Her hands gripped the stone, knuckles white. It remembers them all, she said softly. He followed her gaze but couldn't see. Them all? Women mostly, she said. And the ones who stayed quiet. He shifted uncomfortably. That's a lot of remembering. It doesn't forget, she said. The wind lifted her hair, brushed it against his cheek. He felt a chill, tried to look away. You're full of stories, he said. Some stories need telling, she said. Her eyes met his. And some need witnesses. He swallowed, feeling the weight of her words. I ain't the kind of witness you want. You are, she said, calm and certain. You're all I got right now. He wanted to argue, to tell her she had it wrong, but the tension in the air held him silent. The town slept, but already, rumors would start. They always did. He stepped closer. She turned, brushing his shoulder with hers as if it were accidental. Let's go down, she said. He followed. Footsteps echoed on the wood as they moved toward the well together, the quiet stretching like a held breath. The day hadn't yet begun, but already, the world was watching them. They stood side by side at the edge of the well, its darkness yawning below like a mouth waiting for secrets. She rested her hands on the cold stone, leaning over slightly, and he watched her reflection shiver in the water. You see this? She asked. See what? He glanced down, but couldn't make out more than black and light. Everything that's gone in there. The ones no one talks about. He shook his head. Women thrown in? That's not real. She looked up at him, calm, unblinking. It is. And your mother's name is in there too. He stiffened, his stomach twisting. That's not true. It is, she said. And you've tried to forget. He swallowed hard, fists clenching at his sides. Why tell me now? Because you need to hear it, she said. Or the land will keep telling you, in its own way. He stepped back instinctively. This is insane. She leaned closer. Insane's what happens when people hide the truth too long. He ran a hand over his face. You know it all. Every name, every story. She shrugged. I know enough to make a difference. Silence fell, thick and heavy, until the sound of boots crunching on gravel broke it. The sheriff appeared with a deputy behind him, faces grim. Afternoon, the sheriff said, eyes scanning between them. You here again? She didn't flinch. I'm always here. The sheriff's jaw tightened. You're asking for trouble. She lifted her chin, meeting his stare. How many badges passed over that mouth? The words cut the air sharp. The deputy shifted uncomfortably. He could feel it, the pressure building in his chest. Watch your mouth, the sheriff said, voice low. I'm not done, she said, steady. And I won't be quiet. He could see the tension coil in the sheriff's shoulders, the way his hands twitched near his gun. He wanted to speak but couldn't find the words. The air felt alive with accusation, memory, and something darker that neither could name. You need to control your house, the sheriff said finally, tone flat, leaving no room for debate. He stared at the woman next to him. She hadn't moved. I can't, he said, almost to himself, voice low. He faltered, chest rising fast. She looked at him, a flicker of understanding in her eyes. You don't have to control it, she said softly. You have to decide who stays. He looked from her to the sheriff, then down into the well, seeing shadows twist in the water like they belonged there. Without thinking, he said aloud, she stays. The words hung in the air, sudden, unpolished, final. The sheriff's eyes narrowed. You what? He demanded. I said she stays. You're mad, the sheriff said. She didn't react. He felt her hand brush his arm, small, grounding, almost invisible. Am I? He asked. No, she said. You're awake. His voice cracked slightly. Awake to what? To everything this place remembers. He looked back at the dark water, the stone edges worn smooth by time and weight. And if it remembers too much, she asked. Then we'll remember too, he said, heart racing. The sheriff spat on the ground and stepped back, expression tight. This isn't over, he said. A house like this, a land like this, you can't just claim it. I didn't claim it, he said, feeling his pulse in his throat. I recognized it. She looked down into the well again. Some stories need witnesses. He nodded slowly, glancing at her, seeing the certainty she carried, the way she balanced the weight of what no one else would face. Then we'll witness, he said. Together. The deputy shifted again, uncomfortable, looking between the three of them. Boss, he said quietly, maybe we leave. The sheriff didn't answer immediately, eyes still on the well. She straightened, brushing stone dust off her hands. Go ahead, she said. We're not afraid. He watched her, the quiet strength in her stance. It unsettled him in ways he couldn't name. The sheriff finally turned, muttered a curse under his breath, and left with the deputy trailing behind. Dust swirled at their boots as the sun angled through the clouds. He exhaled slowly, letting the tension leave his shoulders, though the weight in his chest didn't shift. She's staying, he muttered, more to himself than to her. She glanced at him, a faint smile tugging at her lips, one that carried no warmth, only certainty. I said I would, she reminded him. And I meant it. He nodded, swallowing hard. The well gaped in front of them, holding secrets, names, memories no one else would speak aloud. He realized he didn't care that it scared him. With her here, it didn't feel like the land was against him. It felt like someone finally remembered. He stood beside her, hand brushing the rough stone, listening to the quiet hum of the place. "We face it all," she said simply. "Together." He nodded again, looking down into the black water, knowing he couldn't turn away now. Shadows and light twisted together, memory and history pressed into every stone, every echo. He had no answers, only the knowledge that she would stay, and with her, he would face what the well remembered. Outside, the wind lifted dust and leaves, brushing against their legs. He shivered and didn't move. She didn't either. The quiet had weight now. But for the first time, it felt like they weren't alone. The cabin smelled of smoke and old wood. She stacked letters by the stove, then tossed them into the fire one by one. He stood nearby, watching, hands hanging loose at his sides. "Those yours?" he asked. She didn't look up. "Some of them." "Some of them?" "Mine." "And not mine," she said, voice even, eyes fixed on the flames. The letters curled and blackened, disappearing into the heat. He felt his chest tighten. "Why burn them?" She turned, face half lit by firelight. "They're stories that shouldn't follow us." He ran a hand through his hair. "I don't get it." "You don't need to," she said. "Just need to be here." Outside, the sheriff and a few others gathered on the porch. He could hear their murmurs through the thin walls. "They're talking," he said. She shrugged. "Let them." He rubbed his jaw. "They'll bring trouble." She tilted her head. "Trouble's already here." He swallowed, heart racing. He had said nothing to defend her yet, but the words pressed on his tongue. "She's staying," he finally said. His own voice surprised him. "She burned those letters." "She's not hurting anyone else." He could hear the sheriff scoff outside. "I told you," she said softly, "some people never listen." The room felt smaller now, smoke curling toward the ceiling. He leaned on the table, watching her. "You don't love me," he said quietly. She raised an eyebrow. "I didn't say that," he admitted. "Then stop saying it," she shot back. "We're not married yet," he said. She smiled faintly. "We're as married as we need to be." He felt something shift in him, tension loosening in ways he didn't expect. "The governor," he muttered. "They'll be angry." "Let them," she said. "They won't touch us here." "Not now." He looked at her, really looked, for the first time that morning. "You didn't even ask my name," he said. "Names change nothing," she replied. "Then why?" "Because you're already mine," she said simply, moving closer. He wanted to argue, to push back, but her eyes stopped him. Silence stretched between them, heavy and thick, yet somehow grounding. Outside, voices faded. The sheriff had retreated, but not without leaving a warning. She glanced at him. "Do you hear it?" he asked. "Hear what?" She leaned over, fingers brushing a scorched envelope. "The smoke tells stories too," she said. "Every curl, every crackle." He shook his head. "I don't understand half of what you do." "You don't need to," she said. "You just need to stay." He swallowed. "I can't promise that." "You already did," she said, placing her hand on his arm. He felt the fire's heat radiate into the room, burning the past in the letters and black smoke, leaving space for them to build something new. "Same week, no witnesses," he muttered. "Exactly," she said, voice low and steady. He exhaled slowly, the weight in his chest easing slightly, but the tension in the town outside still pressed against the thin walls. She turned back to the fire, poking at the last few letters. "You'll defend me?" he asked quietly. "Always," she said, eyes never leaving the flames. He nodded, jaw tight. "Even if they come for us?" "Even then," she replied, hand brushing his lightly. The sound of the fire crackling filled the room like a heartbeat. He stared at her, realizing that the boundaries between them had shifted. The letters were gone, the smoke curling in the corners, and with it, some of the town's power over them. He moved closer, watching the glow of her face in the flames. "This house, it'll fight us if we're not careful." She nodded. "Then we fight with it. Together." His throat tightened. "Together," he echoed. The cabin, once empty and cold, felt different now, filled with the scent of fire, paper, and something else, something alive and defiant. He glanced toward the window, seeing the dark shapes of the old family's houses across the dirt road. Rumors and whispers were already spreading. He didn't care. She burned the last letter, watched the ashes swirl in the air, and looked at him with a faint smile that made the tightness in his chest loosen, just enough. Smoke filled the room, curling into the rafters, and they stood there silently, side by side. He didn't move away. She didn't ask him to. The quiet was theirs now, a fragile truce against the weight of the town outside. He finally allowed himself to exhale, the fire's warmth pressing into his skin, and for the first time that week, he didn't feel alone. They didn't speak again that night. Words were unnecessary. The letters were gone, the past burned, and for now, they had each other, the cabin, and the heavy certainty that whatever came next, they faced it together. Smoke spiraled, thick and black, into the low ceiling, and for once, it felt like home. Night fell like a weight, pressing against the cabin walls. The rancher lay on the cot, eyes open, listening. At first, it was just the wind, or so he told himself, but then came whispers, soft and low, words that weren't quite memory and not quite imagination. He left her chair empty. She never spoke. "Do you remember?" He sat up, heart pounding, ears straining. The shadows in the corners of the room seemed to stretch, shifting. "It's nothing," he muttered to himself. "Just the wind." But the whispers came closer, curling around him, echoing in ways he couldn't ignore. He swung his legs over the side of the cot and rubbed his face. "Damn it," he said. She emerged from the shadows, quiet as a thought. "It's not nothing," she said. He jumped slightly. "You're awake?" she asked, tilting her head. "Yeah, what's happening?" "They're telling you," she said. "Who?" "The land," she said. "All the women it remembers. All the silence it's carried." He shook his head, frustrated. "Voices don't belong in the dark." "You think the dark belongs to you?" she asked. He stared at her, heart racing. I've never heard it like this." She stepped closer, hand brushing against the cot. "You're not listening. You're remembering." A sudden noise outside made him spin. Footsteps on gravel, careful but deliberate. "Sheriff's men," he muttered. "Already?" She didn't flinch. "They're circling," she said, voice steady. "Come see." He followed her to the door. Moonlight spilled across the yard. Shadows of men moved at the edge of the fence, rifles slung low. "Why don't we leave?" he asked. She shook her head. "We don't run from what's ours." They won't touch us if we're ready," she said. He swallowed hard, feeling panic rise. "Ready?" She nodded once. "You learn fast when you survive." They went back inside. She moved with purpose, gathering oil lamps and stacking supplies neatly on the counter. He watched, chest tight, trying to steady his breath. "What are you doing?" he asked. "Preparing," she said. "For what?" "For them," she said simply. "For every shadow that thinks it owns this land. Every memory that tries to bury us." He looked at her, at the calm certainty in her movements, and felt both awe and fear. "What are you?" he asked quietly. She paused, met his eyes. "I'm what survived," she said. No hesitation. No fear. Only truth. A gunshot echoed from the distance, sharp and sudden, ripping through the night. He jumped, spinning toward the window. "They're testing us," she said. "Testing what?" "If we're afraid," she replied. He clenched his fists, jaw tight. "I am afraid." "Good," she said. "Fear keeps you alive. Courage without it is stupidity." He stared at her, heart hammering, mind scrambling. "And you?" I've learned to walk with it, she said, moving to the corner and checking the locks on the shed door. Every night I've survived, fear was my teacher. The whispers grew again, blending with the wind, threading through the cabin like cold fingers. He pressed his hands to his ears. I can't. Yes, you can, she interrupted. Listen. Remember. Feel. Don't run. He swallowed, teeth gritted. You make it sound easy. It isn't, she said, voice low, matter of fact. But it's necessary. Generations of silence weigh heavier than bullets. Outside, a branch cracked. He jumped, heart in his throat. She didn't move. See, she said. Not a flinch. He exhaled sharply. I don't know if I can do this. She tilted her head, almost amused. You already are. The night stretched on, shadows twisting, voices layering with memory and wind. The rancher sat, listening, feeling the weight of the land pressing against his chest. She moved to stand beside him, brushing her hand briefly against his. It's ours now, she said quietly. We don't let it haunt us. We let it remind us. We let it teach us. He swallowed hard, nodding slowly. The fear was still there, gnawing at the edges of his resolve, but beneath it, a seed of understanding grew. He started. You will, she said, cutting him off. Not tomorrow. Not tonight. But you'll walk with it. A second gunshot split the night, closer this time, sharp and raw. He jumped again, but she only stood firm, hand resting on the table. Now you know, she said softly. Every sound has meaning. Every shadow has a story. And every night tests who stays. He nodded, chest tight, heart hammering. She reached out, touching his arm. You're here. You're staying. That matters more than fear. Outside, the wind shifted, carrying whispers from the land, voices of women long gone, of silence broken. He pressed his palms to his face, inhaling sharply, finally understanding. The darkness didn't own him. Not as long as she was here. Not as long as they faced it together. The cabin creaked, shadows stretched, and the night moved on, relentless, unforgiving, alive. But for the first time, he felt anchored. He wasn't alone. And survival, he realized, wasn't just about hiding, it was about listening, remembering, and standing. Beside her, he did all three. The first knock came before dawn, loud and sharp against the cabin door. He woke to the sound, heart hammering, muscles tight. She was already on her feet, moving like she knew exactly what was coming. They're here, she said, calm, eyes sharp in the dim light. He grabbed his coat, voice low. They won't leave without blood, she interrupted. I know. Outside, boots scraped across the dirt, the sound echoing through the yard. He peeked through the window. Deputies, rifles slung low, circling like wolves. His chest tightened. We can, she said. We just need to be ready. He opened the door. The men froze at the edge of the porch, eyes hard, hands on triggers. She stepped forward beside him, shoulders squared. What's this about? He demanded. One deputy spat into the dirt. Orders, he said. From the sheriff. We don't take orders from the past, she said, voice flat. He felt a spark in his chest, a heat he hadn't known he had. Stay back, he told her. She only nodded once, standing firm. The deputies shifted, uncertain. You're outnumbered, one said. Outgunned, he muttered. Doesn't matter, she replied. They came closer, voices rising, but she cut through them. You think badges give you power over memory? Over this land? The words struck like stones. One deputy raised his rifle. She didn't flinch. He caught himself, feeling fear knot in his stomach. Put it down, he shouted. Another stepped forward, reaching for papers tucked in a satchel. She yanked them away. Records, she said, tossing them onto the floor with a flourish. Flames caught them immediately, licking up the edges. badges, papers, symbols of authority burned in a small, controlled chaos. The deputies hesitated, confusion spreading across their faces. "You're insane," one said. "Maybe," she admitted. "But you can't stop what's already gone." He stepped forward, voice low but firm. "I warned you. Stay back." One of the men lunged. He fired before thinking, heart racing, sight sharp. The deputy fell, screaming, and the others froze. Smoke and fire twisted in the room, curling into their hair, their clothes, their skin. She stood beside him, calm, hands clean, eyes bright. "Now you remember," she said. He stared at the man on the floor, chest tight, stomach churning. "I didn't mean you did what you had to," she said, firm. "Don't look for excuses." He swallowed, hands trembling. "I've never killed like that before." "You have now," she said simply. "Survival doesn't wait for morality." Outside, more boots shuffled, approaching from the dirt road. Sirens wailed faintly in the distance, voices calling. He wanted to run, to hide, to vanish into the night, but she grabbed his arm. "You stay," she said. "We face it. Together." The smoke filled the cabin, thick and choking, but they moved with purpose, using the fire to mark boundaries, to claim the space. He watched her, the way she carried certainty, how nothing shook her. He started. "Shoo," she said, brushing past him to check the windows. "Focus. Listen. Remember." Shadows danced on the walls, twisting with the firelight, alive with past grievances, old authority, memories long buried. The sound of sirens grew, closer, but she didn't waver. "This land," she said softly, "doesn't care about badges. It only remembers who stands." He exhaled, chest heaving, feeling the weight of what he had done, of what he had survived. She came to his side, resting her hand briefly on his shoulder. "See," she said quietly. "The land doesn't haunt. People forget. We don't." He nodded slowly, swallowing the lump in his throat. "I saw it," he said. "I remember." "Good," she said, voice low but steady. "Remembering is all that matters." The fire crackled, consuming the evidence, the past, leaving only blackened ash. The men outside shouted, unsure how to respond. The sheriff's authority felt fragile, almost laughable. He looked at her, eyes wide, feeling the shift in the air, the tension, the power. "We can't stop them forever," he said. "Maybe not," she said. "But we can burn what needs burning." He exhaled slowly, feeling the fear start to ebb, replaced by something sharper, resolve. The cabin, the fire, the land, they were alive, and he was a part of it now. The smoke curled around them, but it didn't choke. It carried a strange kind of freedom. She held his gaze, faint smile tugging at her lips. "Now you remember," she repeated. He nodded, chest tight, mind racing, finally understanding that this was survival, justice, and memory all at once. Sirens approached in the distance, wailing over the hills, but he didn't flinch. She didn't flinch. Together, they stood amidst the smoke, the fire, the burned badges, facing a world that had come to challenge them and realizing that they weren't the ones who would bend. Dawn broke gray and thin over the cabin, washing the room in pale light. She stood at the edge of the porch, hands resting on the rail, staring down the dirt road. He approached quietly, still raw from the night's fire and gunshots. "You've been holding out," he said. "What?" she asked, voice calm. "About you. About why you're here." She turned to him slowly, eyes sharp, unreadable. "Do you want the truth?" "Yes," he said, though a part of him dreaded it. "You'll regret it." She smiled faintly. "Maybe. Or maybe it's what keeps you alive." She moved to stand in the sunlight, face lifted, breathing steady. "I'm the governor's daughter," she said simply. His chest tightened. "What?" "I wasn't sent here by chance," she continued. "Every step, every memory I carry, every place I touch, I've been trained for it. Raised for it. To uncover what this land hides and make it accountable." He ran a hand through his hair, disbelief and awe tangled together. "All this, for revenge?" Not revenge, she said, voice low, steady. Justice. For the women buried in silence, for the families forgotten, for the power twisted against the people it claims to serve. He stepped closer, voice trembling. You mean the sheriff, the men last night? She nodded. They answer to forces older than him, older than the town. They thought a badge gave them control. They were wrong. His hands clenched. And you've been planning this, here? Yes, she said. Every detail. Every choice led me here. I could have died elsewhere. I could have failed. But I didn't. And I won't. He felt a chill, the weight of her certainty pressing against his chest. All this time, you could have left. I could, she admitted. But I didn't. Because the land remembers. And it demanded I stay. The wind moved through the porch boards, lifting dust and dry leaves. He watched her, trying to find some weakness, some hesitation, but there was none. You plan to die here, he said quietly, voice low. Yes, she said, matter of fact. I knew what the cost would be. But if not me, then who? If not now, when? His stomach nodded. And you thought I'd just accept this? You're not just anyone, she said. You're the one who can stand with me. You don't get a choice in whether you're part of this story. You just are. He shook his head, trying to sort through anger, fear, disbelief. I don't know if I can do this. You already are, she said, eyes steady. You were tested last night. You made choices that would have terrified you before. You survived. You remembered. You stayed. He swallowed hard, trying to find words. And if I fail? You won't, she said. We face it together. Always. Silence stretched between them, broken only by the distant wind through the hills. He realized he didn't need to argue anymore. He didn't need to resist. The truth of her lineage, her purpose, it didn't make her weaker, it made them both sharper, harder, and more real. From inside the cabin came a faint noise. The sheriff's men had withdrawn, but the tension in the air hadn't. She glanced toward the house. We make our own rules now, she said. Not theirs. Not the past's. Ours. He nodded slowly, the weight of what she carried pressing into him, mingling with his own fear and resolve. I don't know if anyone else will understand, he admitted. They won't, she said. And they don't have to. We only need to understand each other. He swallowed, finally accepting the truth of it, the stark clarity. The town, the authority, the generations of silence, it all mattered less than standing together. The first light of morning stretched across the porch boards, illuminating her face, calm and sharp, unshakable. He felt a strange awe, watching her, realizing that she had been alive in ways he hadn't seen before, that every choice, every smile, every shadow she carried was part of the fire that would reshape everything. So we fight, he said quietly. Yes, she said, reaching for his hand. And we win what matters. Even if the world tries to take it from us. He grasped her hand, firm, steady, and for the first time, he believed it. Dawn broke fully, pale but certain, over the cabin and the land they now claimed together. They didn't announce anything. They just walked into town together. He stayed half a step behind her, not hiding, not leading. Just there. The street went quiet in pieces, one voice dropping, then another. Doors stayed open but no one stepped out. Windows filled with faces. She stopped in the middle of it, dust settling around her boots. I'm not here to beg, she said. Her voice carried without effort. I'm here to stay. Someone muttered her name. Someone else spat. He felt his jaw tighten but didn't speak. That was the point. She kept going. This land has been married a long time, she said. Married to silence. Married to fear. I broke that. A man near the feed store laughed nervously. You don't own this place. She looked at him. Neither did the men who buried women and called it order. The laugh died fast. The sheriff's office door stayed shut. That mattered. Old families stood in loose groups, hats low, eyes sharp. She turned slowly, letting them all see her. Marriage here doesn't mean rings, she said. It means standing when it's easier to step back. Someone asked, to him? She nodded. To each other. He felt heat rise in his chest, a mix of pride and fear. He stayed quiet. Let her speak. A woman stepped forward, older, hands shaking. You saying things won't go back? I am, she said. Some things don't deserve going back. Another voice, male, sharp. You'll bring fire. She met it calmly. Fire already came. I just didn't hide from it. The crowd shifted. Not closer. Not farther. Just unsure. That was the change. Power doesn't break all at once. It cracks. She turned to him then, brief, grounding. You with me? It wasn't a question. He nodded once. That was enough. Someone else spoke, softer. What happens now? She answered without pause. Now you decide what kind of place this is. Silence followed. Heavy. Real. No cheers. No threats. Just the sound of the wind moving through the street. They walked away together. No one stopped them. No one followed. That mattered too. Back at the ranch, she didn't go inside. She walked straight past the cabin toward the well. He noticed too late. Where you going? She didn't slow. I need to finish something. He followed, heart tight. You don't have to do everything alone. She stopped at the stone edge, looked down. Some things only answer to one voice. She knelt, touching the cold stone. I said their names out loud today, she said. But not here. He stood a few steps back, giving space but not distance. You coming back? He asked. She glanced over her shoulder. I never left. She leaned over the well, breath steady. He could hear the faint echo of water far below. It sounded like listening. I'm married now, she said quietly. Not to you alone. To this place. To what it owes. He swallowed. And me? She looked at him, eyes clear. You chose to stand. That's what marriage means here. He nodded, feeling the truth of it settle in his bones. She straightened and stepped back from the edge. For a moment, he thought she might leave him there, but she didn't. She walked past him toward the cabin, not looking back. He followed, slow, steady. Behind them, the well stayed open, holding what it always had. Names. Memory. Wait. Ahead of them, the house waited. Not healed. Not clean. Just honest. And that was enough for now. The well was quiet this morning. Dust hung in the air, thick and slow, catching the first gray light. She knelt beside it, hands tracing the stone edges like she could feel every story pressed into them. He stood a few feet back, boots planted in the loose dirt, heart still racing from the night before. Smoke from the cabin fireplace curled faintly toward the sky. Nothing moved except for the wind, carrying whispers he didn't want to hear and couldn't ignore. You ready? He asked, voice low. She didn't look up. I'm always ready, she said softly. Her hands hovered over the water, fingers twitching as if she could drop names in one by one and hear them answered below. He felt the weight in his chest tighten. This is it, he said. No turning back. She glanced at him, eyes calm, clear. There's never been a back to turn to. She began, speaking names aloud, each one deliberate, slow, heavy. Women buried, silenced, erased. His mother. Old neighbors. Stories no one dared speak aloud. The sound of her voice echoed down into the well, swallowed but not lost. He could feel it, memory pressing into memory, past and present colliding. I can hear them, he said softly. She nodded. They're listening too. The wind shifted, carrying faint murmurs up from the darkness. He shivered. It's too much sometimes, he admitted. It's supposed to be, she said, voice even. Recognition burns, or it isn't real. She paused, letting her words hang. And you, he asked quietly. Do you remember everything now? She glanced up at him, faint smile tugging at her lips, soft, almost human. I remember enough. He stepped closer, feeling the earth solid under his boots. And me? She smiled wider this time, not unsettling, not sharp-earned. You stayed, she said. You stood. He swallowed hard, heart pounding. I thought I was just surviving. No, she said. You were becoming. He felt heat rise in his chest, the ache of the last weeks folding into something heavier, more certain. Then I'm staying, he said, voice low but steady. Right here? Right here, she said. They fell silent together, listening to the wind, the distant stirrings of the town waking, the faint gurgle from the well. It wasn't peace, not exactly, but it was something that felt like justice. Recognition. Memory spoken aloud and no longer hidden. He realized he wasn't just standing there for her, or for the land, or for the fire and the smoke that had marked their days. He was standing because he chose to remember, too. She reached out, brushing dirt and dust from his coat. You know, she said softly, people think marriage is just words. He looked at her, faint smile tugging at his own lips. I know ours isn't. It's not, she said. It's action. Witnessing. Standing when others kneel or turn away. Defiance. Protection. He nodded, understanding finally what she had been teaching him all along. Then we did it right, he said. She leaned closer, fingers brushing the stone of the well, eyes downcast, voice soft. I've spent years learning what this land remembers. What it forgives. What it takes. And still, I've never been this calm. He followed her gaze, seeing the water black and quiet below. It remembers everything, he said. And now it remembers us too. She nodded once, slow, deliberate. The wind shifted again, carrying something lighter now, less whisper, more acknowledgement. He dropped to one knee beside her, hands hovering over the stone. You staying? He asked, voice low. She looked up at him, that faint smile still in place, no longer unsettling but grounded, steady. I already did, she said. And she meant it. They stayed there for a long moment, side by side, listening to the quiet swell of the land around them, the distant town stirring, and the echo of everything they had burned, faced, and survived. Names no longer forgotten drifted faintly in the air. Memories didn't vanish, but they didn't haunt anymore either. They waited in the well, acknowledged, witnessed, and finally at peace in the weight of being remembered. Smoke still lingered from the cabin, carrying the scent of burned letters, and the faint tang of fear turned to resolve. He reached for her hand, feeling the warmth, the steady certainty. We did it, he said softly. She nodded, eyes calm, lips curved in that faint, certain smile. We did, she said. And it's enough. The sun rose slowly, gray to pale gold, stretching across the land. Dust swirled, catching the light, lifting and falling. They stayed at the well, hands touching, shoulders brushing, side by side. No words were necessary anymore. The past had been spoken aloud. Authority had been challenged. Memories had been reclaimed. And in that quiet, in that shared weight of acknowledgement, they finally allowed themselves to breathe. Her smile lingered, subtle, earned, real. Not threatening. Not mysterious. But honest, carrying all the weight of survival, justice, and memory finally named aloud. He returned it, faint but steady, matching her calm. And for the first time in weeks, he didn't feel fear pressing against his chest. He felt something lighter, steadier, certainty. The well remained open. The land remembered. The town whispered. They stood together. Side by side. Names released. Memories acknowledged. Smoke curling into the sky. Silence settling in the corners. The story had no perfect ending. It never promised one. But for now, it had dignity. It had survival. It had the faint, quiet weight of peace earned through fire, defiance, and truth. And she smiled again.